Okay, this is my review of the Carenado TBM 850 G1000 aircraft model for prepared version 4. And I thought I would use it along with ForeFlight, run the real checklist from the real aircraft, the TBM 900 in this case, but the 850 G1000 is relatively close. I'll talk about some of the differences as we go here. But I wanted to get a sense of how realistic this simulator aircraft is to flying the real thing. It looks great from the outside. The modeling is incredibly detailed. It's a really good representation. You can see this is an 850. It does not have the winglets. Well, it says 850 on the side too. That's a heck of a tip off. And the main gear doors, there's just kind of one big door there, not the little extra extension that the 900 and 910, 930 series all have. Additionally, this has the 4-blade prop instead of the 5-blade, which is common on the new ones. And it's got a landing light on the nose gear. That's just on the wingtips in the newer aircraft. Alright, so here we are in the cockpit. I can kind of jump from seat to seat, different positions here. I've started it cold and dark. That means all the systems are turned off as if you were just coming up to the airplane for the first time in the morning. And I'll just let you kind of see these views. You can sit in one of the back seats, one of the forward-facing ones, a wide open view out the front, and then back in the pilot's seat. So I'm diving into my checklist here on ForeFlight. Pre-flight inspection will consider that complete, doors closed and locked. So I would look down here. We have the pilot door. I think that handle's actually backwards. Maybe they changed that in the 900, or maybe I'm just remembering wrong, but that's closed. And then we can kind of see the door back there. That's closed, so that's good. Emergency exit pin. That would normally be in the emergency exit there. I'll just hit Control X. Maybe that'll refuel me from that message. Alright, that's good. Belts and harnesses will consider them fastened. Passenger oxygen switch off. So I just hover the mouse over it. It says it's on. And this one's on. And then you would check the masks, which are not modeled in here. They should be right in here over that little window there. Make sure all the lights are off. And it looks like they are. So that is good. The crash lever is down. That's this striped bar here. Starter should be off. Ignition should be to auto. So I'll go ahead and flip that. You'd normally leave it parked with that in auto mode. Auxiliary boost pump, fuel selector, and AP trims all on. So, or all off rather. Yeah. So that's off. Fuel selector is to manual, which is the off, and then autopilot trims are off. And then there's an extra switch in the 850 that the 900 got rid of, which is an Avionics master switch. We'll have to put that on start mode in just a moment. ELT is normally up here in the 900. It's down here in the 850. So I'll just zoom in. And it looks good, I believe. Micro mask switch guarded. And that is right beside there. I'm going to hide this yoke by clicking there. That's a nice feature in these sims. When you're doing virtual reality, it's pretty easy to get around your vision around the yoke like you would in real life. But in this two-dimensional sim, it's much tougher, so they let you turn that off. De-icing systems all off. Good. Inertial separator as desired. We want it off for starting up. We are not on a dusty or dirty ramp. Parking brake. You hold the brakes. Flick it on. There we go. Alright, landing gear control is down. That's a little different in the 900, but close enough. Manual override is backwards. This also is a little different. This whole throttle area has been redesigned, but throttle to cut off. Where it is here. We just want it kind of at idle. The That would actually mean the condition lever cut off on the 850. Flaps up, that's the proper position on the 850. Fuel tank, and this should be, we're going to start with the prop full forward. I'm not actually sure. I think in the sim, when I was training, I did it with full forward for starting, but I'm not sure if that's correct in the 850. And then fuel selector is off, so that's a problem. Let's put it to right or left. Okay. And we go up to the environmental controls here. This one has a manual input mode for your cabin altitude control, and in the 900 it's more automated, but the AC and bleed should be off right now, so that's the bleed and it's off, and AC air conditioner is off. That looks good. Pressure mode switch, I don't think there is that in this aircraft, and the dump switch is guarded. Hot airflow distribution is right there, and that's fine. Alternate static is good, it's turned off. Emergency ram air, can't quite see it, but I'm going to assume that that's in the proper position, and then all the circuit breakers look good. The essential bus tie switch is guarded and turned off. The emergency landing gear valve would be down here. In fact, you can see this little pull tag to get at it. I don't think that's modeled in this simulator. And then passenger briefing complete. Okay, we'll move on to the starting checklist here. First thing we want to do is power up some of the basic systems here. So turn the crash bar on, we'll put battery on and the main generator, and then in this 850 we need to do start mode for avionics power. And that will start booting up the PFD on the left. So let's see, that's crash lever, ATIS startup clearance, we're going to not worry about that today. Start source generator. Alright, panel lights check. Let's see if I can figure out how that works on the 850. I'm guessing it is down here, yes. So there's a little button, and basically that lights up all the different lights in here. And then here we can normally test these lights with this switch, these switches here, and make sure they work right. That's a little different in the 900, so I'm not as familiar with what sort of flashing you should see here. Alright, landing gear lights, fuel on board, I'll have to do later because normally in the 900 we have the whole panel powered up, but it's a little different here. Residual ITT temp is -15. Wow, it's cold in Aspen, so that's great. That's less than 150. Our voltage is, this is a little different layout than I'm used to, 27.4. That's very high for the battery voltage. That's fine. We'd expect about 28 volts if we're on a GPU, and more like 25, 25.5 on the battery, but that's reasonable simulation here. CAS messages, verify they make sense. So fuel pressure, oil pressure, yeah, those are a problem right now. Oxygen closed. In the 900, that would mean the valve that you have to get to outside is not in the right place. I wonder if that just talking about the switch here. Yeah. Okay, parking brakes on, that's fine. Automatic fuel swapping is disabled, that's good. It's in manual mode. Ignition should be in auto mode. And then oil temperature, pitot, heat, stall heat, that's all fine. Let's go check this. Ignition. Yeah, that's in auto, that's okay. Alrighty, we'll clear the master caution that comes up automatically at start. Audio alarms, you would test that. There's a button on the ceiling. I don't know if they have that in the 850 or in this sim. Oh, they have it modeled, but you can't actually do anything. Okay, that would normally make the stall horn sound. Okay, that's finished our before start checklist, so now it's time to start the engine. So strobes on, inertial separator, we want it off, and it is. Ignition auto, we just checked that. Engine instruments are alive and functioning, those all look good. Aux BP, we want that on. Okay, and we can hear it running, and we should get a CAS message, and we do. Aux boost pump on, good. timer, we would normally start that. I'm not going to worry about it here. I'm going to assume everything happens in the right time. Now we'll do the starter switch. We're going to look for starter and ignition on the CAS box. And then once our NG gets over 13% and ITT is less than 150, which that'll be fine, we go into low idle with the condition lever. And once we get fully started, we'll have to manually turn off the starter. So here we go. Let's go up to here. Starter on. You can hear the igniters. We should see starter and ignition. And we do. And we're not over 13%, but I guess it's not quite modeled right. Just to low idle. And we're watching for ITT to go too high. Not sure why the prop's going crazy or the torque. Let's see, that happened really fast compared to the real thing and was different things out of whack there. But we do need to turn the starter off because we are fully started. And let's get the rest of our power going here. On our aux BP to auto. We want our fuel selector to go to automatically swap itself for us on a schedule. We can test it out with the manual swap button. So we're on the left tank down there now. We should go to the right tank. Good. It's modeling that. That's nice. Okay, and then we should have turned our inertial separator on right away. Kind of feel like I need about 3 hands here to do my iPad, as well as the mouse, keyboard, and view controls here for the sim. Okay, double checking checklist. Our NG should be around 69%. It's actually a little low in this, but that's okay. Oil pressure and all that did come up, which we looked at, or I looked at while we were doing that. Inertial separator on, good. aux BP, fuel selector, and trims all up. Battery amps, once that's less than 100 amps of charge, we can turn on our bleed and air conditioning. It should be this upper one here. It looks like it's showing only 1, which is not quite modeled right either, but that's okay. So we'll turn our bleed on. That cleared that CAS, and we can go on to manual AC mode where we just control the fan speed with this knob here. Alright, we tested the tank swap. Battery amps are less than 50 now, so we can test our standby altimeter. So we swap this up to standby. We should get a CAS message about the main gen, which we did not. And we should have seen the voltage on this second horizontal bar basically go back to where it had been before. It doesn't look like it's modeled right. It should be around 50 or 60 amps at the moment coming off of the generator or standby alternator, but it's okay. Alright, the CAS messages as expected. So inertial separator on, that's appropriate, and then we have not turned on our pitot heats yet, that's appropriate. So before we taxi, and this simulator's already started us on the runway, but we'll go ahead and go through this list. The inertial separator is on, our position on the ramp is fine for now. We got our weather set, we'll just assume we did that. Flight instruments check, they all look good, and we would have checked those while we were taxiing around, make sure they were responding correctly. Our flight plan entered in our landing field elevation. Okay, so normally I would hit flight plan. I would use this button to... doesn't have the little shortcut the G1000 has with the big knob turning left to get to your nearby stuff. But so let's just put in... There we go. So a little different than the real thing. It's not quite modeled perfectly. Enter. Yes. Okay, I don't know why that's not working. Okay. I should be able to just type right now. This is odd. Press enter to accept, okay. Set active waypoint to question mark. Okay. Very odd. Let's say Denver. Oh, I still can't type. K, D, K. Odd. I don't know why it keeps making me hit the cursor button again and again, but K, D, E, N. Enter. Oh, okay. Maybe it doesn't like the current waypoint being there. Alright, and then again I should be able to type right away. I have to hit that twice instead of 0 times. K-A. Let's see. Alright, is there a reverse? This is weird, dude. They don't really do the cursor stuff the right way. I should be able to turn off that flashing by pushing the inner knob. That shouldn't make me start typing. But now I have a backwards flight plan in here. Let's see, can I do menu? Can't get to any of the flight plan options. Alright, we'll just leave that as is. That's pretty far from the real thing. So far it's pretty confusing. It's enough of a difference that it's pretty confusing. I'm not sure you'd really want to train with this for the real thing, honestly. The layout and where to look for stuff is pretty good. Some of the numbers are modeled a little off. That's to be expected, I think. Unfortunately, some of the UX, the user interaction with dealing with the G1000 that you really need to be able to practice does not work here. But let's just act like we put in a proper flight plan. Alright, and then let's say we were going up to 20,000 feet, so I would just set this needle up to 20,000. I think that's right. I'm actually not as familiar with the manual system here, so you guys can comment and correct me on all of this stuff, I hope, so I can learn more about it. Transponder, check your squawk, we're doing 1200, and standby, that's fine, it should go to altitude reporting automatically. Call sign, verify that that's correct. That's an option in the G1000 that has to get turned on by your installer, and it would normally show up under the minimum, so I'm not surprised they don't have the call sign reporting there. It's more of an ADS-B out type of concern nowadays. Trims, what you would normally do is test them with the yoke and make sure you can interrupt it with the yoke. And then you would set it up to, in this box, to go the elevator to the bottom of the green. Rudder I usually do halfway between the white and the green. Let me just bring this up so it's a little sharper. Rudder I usually go a little more right of what this white thing is here, and then this white indicator in the middle for your ailerons. That's good. Flaps up, that's good. De-ice systems, let's test these. So, normally what we would do is we test the airframe de-ice. We turn it on, we should see both light. Actually, we should just see one light. We should see the outboard boots out here inflate, which they don't do. And I think it's 7 seconds. You would see the inboards inflate, and you'd see the right light turn on there. So that's not really doing much. Prop de-ice, as I recall, it goes for roughly 90 seconds. I have to look these things up from the book. I haven't memorized it. But you would normally watch it for that time period and then make sure that light blinks for a bit when it cycles to the next part of the prop de-icing routine. Windshield, just make sure that works. Pitot heat, stall heat will turn on right before takeoff. You don't want those to get super hot on the ground when there's no airflow, so you wait for takeoff for that. Okay, throttle, you want to test out the feathering. This is again a little different in the 900, but let's try it. Alright, our prop RPM at the top of the screen is going down, that's good. This is getting some oil into the prop, getting it circulating. So I'm watching up here at the prop RPM. Back to feather again. I don't know if I'm actually moving it all the way. There we go. And we move it full forward. The way I fly, it's just going to stay full forward the whole time. Okay, CAS messages checked. Those are the same and still make sense. Taxi light on. There we go, taxi lights. Okay, parking brake off, brakes and steering we would test on the rollout to the runway. Okay, before takeoff, parking brake, landing lights on. Ignition as required, we can just do auto for now. Re-verify that the, I tapped the wrong place, the checklist. Re-verify that aux PP is auto and these switches are all up. It's good. De-ice is as we want it. We already looked at that recently enough. Inertial separator is on. We saw the CAS message. Trims are good. Environmental panel, which is the bleed, and the pressurization mode on the 900, as well as the air conditioner, is all good. Battery charge was less than 50 amps. Landing field elevation, that's okay for cabin pressurization. Fuel quantity and balance. We're looking on the MFD right here, and be normally like 148. So it's relatively closely modeled there. Engine instruments, they look good. They're all alive. Numbers are reasonable. I think that ITT is a little cool, but it is cold out here, so maybe they're taking that into account. Transponder, passengers, table. Let's make sure nobody... Well, you can't really see it too well here. The table's underneath that middle window over there. Autopilot set our altitude and heading bugs, so set it up to, I don't know, just 12,000, and we'll just sync our heading bug on our current heading. Flaps to takeoff mode, selected, make sure they're indicating, and we would normally lean forward and look out there. Actually, you can see it, the flaps are down. Takeoff briefing. Alright, this will be a normal takeoff. Our limiting factor for the engine is likely to be torque. We'll go up to 100% torque on here and keep the ITT out of redline, which is like 840. Distance needed, we should have plenty here, even though it is a high runway here, high altitude at Aspen. Distance available, I didn't look it up. If this was real, I would. Initial departure procedure, we're just going to go straight out on this heading to that altitude I set. If we have an emergency before the rotation speed of 85 knots, we'll put on the brakes, and if we think we have reverse thrust and it's not an engine thing, engine emergency, we'll use reverse. And we'll keep it on the runway. If it's immediately after rotating, but we're flying, if we have enough runway, we'll put it right back down. Otherwise, if we don't, we'll leave the gear as is. We'll leave basically everything as is and try to go somewhere relatively straight ahead. And if we get a chance, we'll pull the crash bar to turn off the power, and ideally we'll turn off the fuel right before touchdown. Biggest thing is we will not stall the plane. We're going to fly it all the way down no matter what. And if we get about 1,000 feet or so, AGL will attempt to turn back and remember to get the gear back down. Okay, that's our takeoff briefing. We can go ahead and turn on our heaters for the pitot install. And then we have a mnemonic FAT fly it, which stands for flaps and trims. Those are all right here, conveniently together. It looks good. Fuel tank is on the right tank. The values, the quantities are good. Balance is fine. Turn on our lights, which we already did. We'll do yaw damper after we get climbing out. We got our inertial separator turned on, and we're going to push the toga button to set up the autopilot to give us roll and pitch commands up to our selected altitude. And that's just on the side of the throttle, this red button here. They modeled that, which is great. Alright, and we gotta turn the parking brake off. So, let me put my iPad down. See how squirrely this takeoff is with the simulator rudder pedals I'm using. Alright, once we get to 85 knots, we'll rotate, and once we have no more runway left, we'll get the gear up. We will raise the flaps at 115 knots of airspeed, and with the same, right after that, we'll turn on the yaw damper, and we'll just climb out. I like to go up to 40% power before I parking brakes off. Before I let it roll, so I'm holding the brakes on the pedals, 40%. Usually do this once a day. And it models the RPMs a little flaky here, but we're looking for all the instruments and the CAS messages to look right. Alright, and here we go. full with the throttle. Let's probably see what that gets us in the simulator here. I don't know why we're not getting 100%, but moving pretty slow here. My rudder pedals are easy to over control, but I'm looking for 85 knots. For some reason the G1000 is still in reversionary mode. I shouldn't see all the engine instruments on the left and right screens. Whoa, whoa. Took off on its own there. Alright, there's 85. Let's climb. Let's climb. Must be the trim setting was a little goofy for the elevator. Alright, that's going to be all our runway. So we can raise the gear here. Okay. Why can't I raise the gear? Let's fly the airplane first. There we go, I had to use the mouse wheel. Alright, now we want to gain enough airspeed to get to 115 before we bring the flaps out. So I'm going to lower the nose a bit. Use my trim. And go ahead and do the yaw damper, or not. I guess that's not modeled properly. Oh no, it's turned on. I just don't see a light I expect. Alright, there's 115. And in this aircraft you have to go even more flaps to get to 850 mode, which is to use full power from the engine. I don't know when the 850 guys normally like to do that. 900 guys don't have to worry about it, so I just go ahead and do that. And we make sure our torque is staying in check there on the top of the MFD under 100%. Well, actually it's supposed to be in the 120s in this plane, but I don't know why it won't let me go that high. We'll just climb out. Once we decided we're high enough from the ground and we're not in any icing and there's minimal risk of bird ingestion to the engine, we can turn off the inertial separator, and that's why we couldn't go up with the torque. That was what was holding it back in the modeling. Normally that torque would build slowly over about 45 seconds instead of instantly when you turn that off. So I'm trying to just, now that's me moving it around, trying to tweak it a little. Okay, let's see if the autopilot will function. Let's turn autopilot on. Now we have the light for yaw damper. Now let's go heading mode. Flight level change mode at 150 knots. It's following the command bars, the magenta command bars. And it should climb us to 12,000 because it's got altitude select armed, which is correct. That simulator's doing that correctly. See if it actually captures that. I think I'll stop here. I mean, we've kind of run through all the systems at this point for the most part. I would say in general it's actually a pretty good model. I mean, the graphics are incredible. They're amazing. I think the only weak point is probably just the G1000 stuff, and I imagine that's really tough. There's a massive, massive amount of capability in the G1000 panel, and it changes a little bit over time as well. So if they were modeling it, working on it back in the early days of the G1000, maybe they've just missed all the changes over the years. But it does, let you get used to where your eye should look for different instruments, and even if interacting with flight plans and stuff isn't quite right, I imagine procedures are kind of off as well. I think it's still a useful tool. So I'll put the link to this in the show notes for this video down below so that you can get more details if you're interested in playing with this. They also have it for Microsoft Flight Simulator 10, which is available on Steam if you want to just purchase it there for Windows. Not for X-Plane as far as I know, but also for Prepared, which is the simulator engine I'm using now. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a comment if you got any questions or things I missed that we should have gone over. I'd love to hear from you. Take care.